So, last debate we had multiple contestants. This we're only doing the top two, as this is going to be the final debate of 2024 and the head developer election. Cyan did lead by a little bit, but that wasn't counting all the other votes that were scattered around. So, in this debate, each candidate gets to answer one question per community member. We'll do a little coin flip to see who goes first. So here's how it's going to work. One question will be directed at Magic, then one question will be directed at Cyan. From any community member, they have to wave on the stage. If there's no one on the stage, we'll allow for repeat questions, but they have to be different.
Will you be posting the question we'll be answering in the head development chat?
Well, you'll be answering here.
No, but they'll be posting the questions in the chat.
Oh, they can post in the chat. It'll be like a Q&A. So they'll come on the stage and they'll ask with their voice or through text.
Okay.
That's how it'll work. So just like real life, there are debates where people will ask questions. Though they are scripted, these will be unscripted, and don't fuck with the questions, bro. You'll get kicked. I'm actually banned people who are like completely trolling with their questions. So it's okay for a little bit of a joke, but don't like completely troll with it. So now that we've established the groundwork for that, do the coin flip. Magic head, Cyan tails. Okay, Cyan goes first this time. Unless you want to decide. You get to decide if you want to go first or second, Cyan.
I don't really care either way.
Oh, you're going to decide?
Well, then I'm going first, and if that's what the coin flip says.
Okay. Alright, so if you want to ask the question, first person up, they ask the question. Cyan gets about 2 minutes to respond. I'll be a little lenient. Or the candidates get 2 minutes to respond.
Yeah, I brought someone up.
Alright. Is there ever going to be anything done with the wiki? Or at least the database being updated?
That's a pretty good question, because that would require a lot of community involvement because of how sporadically the game changes. It's not like, you're playing like fucking Factorio, Minecraft or something where there's dedicated updates that are done, right? So there's always going to be like maybe one change for this one gun where it changes innate ability at one point, and then we go back because it's too broken or something along those lines. So unless you have a dedicated team, which we would have to incentivize, it'd be a little hard. I mean, I would be open to having a dedicated team of people that would be like updating the wiki every like week or so.
Updates like system is Space Station 13, and that manages a wiki perfectly well. Although there is a lot of small tweaks to like boss and such, the broad strokes are still the same. So you could, like, I assume like tomorrow you're not gonna make Sigilite suddenly a support boss who I don't know, shoots blood everywhere.
I mean,
so although they're going to be constant updates, it's not like the entire game shifting every 10 seconds.
Yes, but I mean the time, like the amount of times that we would have to update the game or the wiki would be a little bit more often than something like any like actual game like Terraria, for instance. So that's the point I'm trying to get.
Is my best example for this because it's the exact same update setup. Although Space Station 13 isn't like as much of a game as this, so there's not as much like stats to keep track of. The wiki has a lot of broad strokes, but it can go technical what it needs to.
Yeah, I mean, then that would have to go to the point of restructuring the wiki to be more oriented in a way that would work better that way. But at the end of the day, I am open to having a team of people that would actually be dedicated and incentivized to edit the wiki.
Also, please update the database, like filters, or at least organizing it in some capacity.
We are working on that. There is going to be an update at some point that goes over
so in like 3 to 4 business days is what I'm hearing?
No, not business days. I mean, it'll be some... Yeah, it'll be a little bit, but don't worry. There are plans for fixing the database in the works. Not by me, but by some of the other devs.
Thank you. That's all I really have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got a bloody nose the second I got called up because I know God hates me. See you.
Good luck. So now we're swapping Magic Swap?
The next question's for Magic, but I guess he can answer the same one, but I didn't really clarify that, so let me clarify. You can ask the candidates one question each, and they both have to answer. So my bad on that. It's the first time. Doesn't seem like anyone else wants to ask a question. If no one else asks the question, then I guess I could let DJ talk, but he is the VP. So, I mean, your VP can ask the other candidate a question then, if I'm going to allow that.
So wait, am I answering the previous question or waiting?
I guess for that one, I didn't clarify, so we'll wait. But I'm gonna let DJ ask the question to Cyan this time, since it's a little messy. All right, go ahead, DJ. Ask the question.
Can you hear me?
Also, for the record, this is the VP, and Pooflet, you can ask Magic a question if you want.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Cyan, I know you want to run for head dev, but from what I've seen in the dev chat, most of the time you ask Magic Swap for help. So how come you want to run for something but ask the other candidate for help all the time?
Because we're a team. It's not like it has to be, the head dev design has to be someone that always is doing all the brunt of the work and is just an ideas man. Everyone's working together on this thing. Some people might specialize in different aspects better than others, but at the end of the day, it's good to have input from different people and getting different ideas just instead of having, so it's not an echo chamber.
See, that wouldn't make sense, but you're only asking one person almost all the time from what I see.
I beg to differ. I usually don't ask questions. I ask questions from everyone at the end of the day. I try getting a lot of input from everyone just to see what's going on and what they think of updates. Even just within the PRs themselves, it's just like having, you know, different input from different people like Grayox or Drew or even Darker One. It helps actually give, you know, insight on different ways of actually doing things correctly or more optimized ways or even just a different concept entirely.
Okay. No, that's my question.
Okay, the next one's for Magic, Aurora.
Okay, can you hear me there? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so as you stated earlier, this is more so a question to both parties.
Yeah, this is more directed at Magic. He goes first.
Yeah, so how would you handle the current power consolidation issue where the average zombie player feels like just cannon fodder versus like the high-end like Z-mains are typically ending up with like 10, 20 brains, leaving the average player feeling like they're just mashing their face into a barricade? What would be the way you would handle that?
So what you're saying is, how would I handle the fact that it seems that some players...
Yeah, the power consolidation.
So some players are able to use zombie power more effectively than the average player?
Yeah, I know. I understand that's a little bit more of a skill type thing, but like some games are able to handle it. I'm just seeing how you'd handle that at all, if it's at all possible.
Yeah, it is pretty easy just to say skill issue, but a lot of the issue is about how power is distributed against the zombie tiers. For example, we have normal class, we have demi bosses, lesser evils, elite demis, bosses. There's a lot of incongruency with how zombie damage is distributed. I know bloated zombies have that regeneration on hit ability where they gain almost like 100, 200 HP per swing. And I feel it really gives some zombies, like the bloated zombie, more power over others. And I think people still universally agree that normal zombie is kind of, for being the default pick, isn't very optimal. Let me put it this way. If all the bots went bloated zombie, you'd probably see the win rate plummet by 20%.
Yeah, I believe we also seen that with the fast zombies when Drew tried that out once. So
with that context in mind, I think that we need to have a more holistic review of zombie classes. You know, Bucket's previous update was mostly focused on making each class unique. Now we need to make sure each class is more or less equal. And as far as the cannon fodder goes, that's a very tough issue to solve since DPS.
Yeah, it's a very large, broad spectrum, and that just gets into the feeling that the average zombie player tends to experience.
So I think I would go for a more realistic approach and make sure all demi bosses stand a chance. Because Cold Marrow is still the only one that can last 20 seconds, not even, against the fully stacked Wave 6 Cade. That's not to say all demi bosses should be able to face tank a Cade, but
yeah, but it tends to feel like you so much as even exist in front of humans for a few seconds past like wave 2 or 3, you're just dead. You just don't do anything.
Yeah, it's a very complex issue, so all I can promise is that I would put together a holistic approach to looking at the zombie team as a whole, implementing stat tracks for what zombie classes are being picked. And that'll help us alleviate some of the issues people feel.
Yeah, so try to get into a sort of database. And I guess that can also be answered then by Cyan as well.
Yeah, Cyan, would you do anything different?
So there's two parts to this question, right? There is one of changing the average player feel for the zombies and
It's
just like making
technically just all in the same thing. It's just the way the power consolidation feels towards zombies, where it's just like, because when I watch these normal zombies, their experience is just mashing their face into a barricade versus like the Z mains. They see the Z mains getting like 10, 20 kills, and that's just demoralizing for the average player. So how would we handle that outside of just like saying skill issue?
Well, I feel like a lot of that issue is that you have to keep in mind the balancing for this stuff has to come from both how the top players perform and also how the regular players perform. And I feel like some of these changes do end up being more weighted towards the top players, people that abuse certain zombie classes bosses, making them stack up, etc. So it would definitely be a change in the approach to how we do go about balancing these things. And how we would actually go about doing that is making the default class feel a little bit better and rebalancing it so that 70% of the people are probably just going to go the default class if it's late waves, right? They're not going to bother actually trying to like link up and choose specific classes because at the end of the day, unless someone leads, it's just not going to happen. It's just throwing yourself at a cage. So
your average player.
Exactly. So I think that rebalancing it so that making Riot Zombie not just a fucking better version of regular zombie would have to be in order for an example, as well as just B, making the regular class feel a little bit tankier so that it's not just instantly dying is also a really good way about going about that. And then as for like bosses and demi-bosses specifically, I think that there definitely needs to be a little bit of a rebalance for the boss, because let's say someone goes Devo wave 6, it's like, are you going to boss ban this guy? Are you going to make it so that Devo is viable wave 6? Like, those are the big questions that I think need to be discussed more within the devs themselves and like how they want to bring the game together. But for me personally, I think that going about making it so that the bosses are a little bit, have a little bit more viability during wave 6 would definitely help.
Yeah, this is a slight addition onto that statement for your last part. It also tends to feel like if someone's just kind of mediocre at boss, they don't really get a chance to practice this out, and then they just get insulted and everyone just wants to boss ban them, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, my personal approach to that sort of thing is that, unless they're actively choosing like Butcher 3 waves in a row just to be a dumbass, then you're not going to boss ban them. Same thing goes with cading, right? If someone makes a cade and they can't replace fast enough, you're not going to, rubber hammer them, right? They need time to actually experience it for themselves. Just looking at what people pick and paying attention to that isn't the same thing as actually going out there and playing the boss yourself, right? If I read all about swimming and in books, it's not the same thing as actually going to practice swimming in a pool. So there definitely needs to be some hands-on experience with this, which does come with losing games.
Yeah, well, I suppose that'd be more of a community management type aspect rather than...
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Is that all?
Yep, that's about all. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Scott, I think there's a question in chat for both of us by Just Dealer.
Question asked by Just Dealer. He has to wave on the stage.
Oh, you have to talk and not just ping?
Yeah, they have to wave and then they can just direct to the stage. KB's next.
Okay.
Okay, this is directed at Cyan first, and then Magic can respond. Since that wasn't clarified the first time, my bad.
Good morning. Sorry. It's
Yo.
the first time. I just woke up. But so my question is Oftentimes, developers will move in a direction that you don't agree with or see eye to eye with. Even with the head dev role, there has been some questionable decision making.
You mean the lead dev role?
Sorry, with the lead dev role, there still has been some questionable decisions that either A, don't seem ironed out, like the uncorrupted sigil mess that's been happening recently, or B, with other devs like disagreeing with it. What are the methods and ways you will implement to prevent developer infighting with these ideas, and how will updates and their methodology be accommodated for this with your own vision?
Well, I think a lot of what the mentality goes into this is that it's a free game at the end of the day, right? Like, we're not being paid to develop this game, right? So it's, a lot of the strategies that would work normally for this sort of thing would not really be realistic in a sense of like having an organized structure of like, here we have a big blackboard on the wall. These are the points that we want to hit, and these are just like expected dates to get it done by. It's all done in the free time of all the devs.
Oh yeah. That's completely understandable. I'm just because sometimes it's just like there's a lot of clashing ideas.
Yes.
For you, Magic as well. How would you agree with this, or would you?
Well, I mean, I didn't finish answering the question, but
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I think that it would help at the end of the day if there was some sort of back end discussion a little bit more in depth than just making a PR and reading through and being done with it. I think that it would definitely benefit everyone to say like, this is what I want to do. These are the points that I want to hit. And then someone goes to review the PR and then they say, oh, you missed out on this. Like, I feel like point 3 doesn't really hit that well as you thought it would. I think it'd be going back and revising a little bit would be better. But at the end of the day, you can't really, you can do all the like introspective insight to what's going on in the game.
Okay.
And if you implement it, it could be turning out entirely different than you thought it would be. So a lot of this is just, seeing that the update was shit. You have to admit that it was shit, and you have to go back and fix it, like what we did with the sigil.
Okay. All right. Magic, what's your stance on this mainly as well?
So we recently had a controversy with the status icons.
Oh yeah, right. I saw that. So how would
the root of that issue was that the pull request was made. The standard procedure was followed, but it was kind of implicitly reviewed, as in the pull request was made and then merged a few hours later.
Because keep going. Sorry.
Well, my solution to that would have been, in the previous debate, I said I would have required 2 reviews for pull requests. One would be a performance review and one would be a mechanics review. So one person would be looking at gameplay implications. The other person would be looking at, cleanliness of the code, making sure there isn't like any glaring performance implications for something like that.
Okay. Good.
I feel like that would resolve a lot of issues, because then you would at least guarantee there is a separate pair of eyes on that, and then someone could say, hey, the icons for this was changed, even though we didn't quite agree on that. Or with the sigil uncorrupts, hey, I just tested out the sigil stuff in game. It took me 12 years to uncorrupt the sigil.
Oh yeah. Okay. So would you? It'd be a second review. Okay. All right. And this one's more or less just a question of guarantee. With the dev team having, don't take this the wrong way, guys, kind of a wishy-washy track record with starting things and either A, losing motivation, or B, never really finishing things like Zombie Mode, Classic, Chaos, Eclipse, and Battle Royale, we could also see a potential with this like dev election that this lead dev thing might only last for like 3 to 5 months before things return back to the normal. What can we get a guarantee on how long your rule will be sticking around for?
Is this my question? Because it's a second question.
That's a second question.
It's guaranteed
I mean,
to
that's
it's both of you. It's
well,
for both of you. Yeah.
No, it's more towards Magic, I guess. Like, because you were still talking to him, but that's okay.
Then I'll just go answer it after that.
Okay.
So as far as rulings go, I think it'll mostly be more of like a legacy things, or like things that I really push for in like the first month of dev. So I know there are some projects that I would like to put a lot of muscle behind, and I feel like head developer would give me the resources to be able to do that. One would be the map system rework, where the maps are moved to a database. We can store a lot more metadata about maps, like category, ranking. We can let the community vote what they feel like maps using the emote system in game.
Oh.
Maybe even make a public database where we can archive all the maps on like a secondary server or something. So
Like
that
the
we can
Fastiel.
kind of like the fast deal, but it would have everything, like previous versions, anything. Like if it was a BSP at some point, it could be stored on there.
All right. Magic E Dunside, I think it's your turn to answer this one.
Yeah, Cyan, you have a little bit to answer that.
So the question is basically, how long do you plan on enforcing the things that you wanted to implement into the game?
Without any like yeah. How long will this lead dev thing be kind of like guaranteed for? Without like say intervention from somebody else.
Well, for the things I personally plan on working on as long as I can, because I'm not. If someone's making a project, right? No offense to V-Town, but let's say the classic ZS, right? And either A, he loses motivation, and B, no one likes it. I'm not going to force him to keep working on that if it clearly isn't working out. But for the things that I feel like will work out, for instance, like having a dedicated review for maps for both aesthetics, optimization, and gameplay, I feel like that will definitely need to be staying around for a while, because there have been a lot of complaints of people saying my map is optimized, it looks good, but it plays like shit because A, the person that made the map doesn't play ZS all that much, or B, they just had a wrong insight of it. So having a review system for these things would definitely help alleviate some of these problems that people have.
Okay. And those were my main two questions, because I wasn't too because my main issue coming into this was making sure that these two candidates here would keep their word for the foreseeable future. I don't want this to become a nothing ever happens moment. It's nice to hear that both of you guys actually sound like you're committed to this idea of lead dev. All right, that should be everything for me. Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you two for answering my questions.
Thank you, KV.
I'll go back now.
Okay, Just Dealer, you're gonna write out your question. So I'm gonna count you right now. Unless you want to come up and speak. Are you gonna speak or are you gonna write it out?
You can just have them up here for posterity.
Oh yeah, I'll just disconnect quietly. Thanks.
I'll see this one's write it out.
Okay, so Cyan goes first. More of a question towards Cyan.
If you're going to clean up content packs of bloat, how are you going to handle it? Anime, furry, military, yada yada, slop bloat of player models in the shop in general. So the biggest thing I would say is to have a combination of both the size of the influence, the size of the actual model itself with the voice packs, as well as the popularity of it, right? So if it's popular, right, but it needs to be optimized, we're probably not going to remove it. We'll probably have to redo it and have it less file size, better rigging, yada yada. But if it's not very popular, it's just sitting up there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and only maybe 1 or 2 people bought it, given it's not a seasonal currency because it has all other stipulations, then I think it should be up for review and at the end of the day removal, because a lot of these models and a lot of these cosmetics are up there taking a space and no one's buying them, no one's utilizing them, no one's doing anything with them. So sure, the people that made them will be compensated if it gets taken down, maybe some amount of amber or some amount of compensation, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't be sitting up there just collecting dust. There should be some sort of review for these things and cleaning up of the system.
Okay, that's a question for Magic.
So I think this kind of ties into the whole player model audit that was going on several months ago. Unfortunately, the realistic way of handling this would be to look at popularity for models, see what people actually want, see what people actually buy, and set up some hard guidelines on what is possible for file size and try to shoot for that. I know that some bone counts vary wildly, and it contributes to server performance in a non-negligible way. But unfortunately, a lot of those edits require a lot of specialized editing to pull off. So we would need hard guidelines. We would need someone who is able to dedicate a lot of time to review a model. And as far as materials optimization goes, that goes. Without getting too much into the weeds, we would need to set up a system for that. However, I would be open to look at other systems such as hot loading models that are commonly used. For example, we could say have an add-on that only has the models that are in active use, while the models that have 0 purchases are kind of just loaded on demand. So I would be open to my mind to more exotic solutions to this issue so that we don't end up running against the wall. Because if we end up optimizing every single model, then that kind of just raises the ceiling a little bit more.
Okay. Both good answers. Next person is not Loopers. I guess he asked Cyan one question, but you can ask Magic another question. Or just both.
I'm here because apparently not enough people ask the questions. I also forgot that. Has there been ever a consideration for setting up some sort of team to like a team of players from every part of like the CL spectrum to like pre-test updates? So to have some people, like not any people with dev experience, but more with game experience, with a lot of game experience, and especially also some minimal game experience to try and get the perspective for any bigger changes. Because there is something. It's to consider the new player's perspective for some of these things. Since a lot of some systems just aren't explained. Like, I don't think there's anywhere in game, even with the database, I can figure out how the 50 different slows work, or what the fuck arm and leg damage means. I know I can ask these things, but we probably should consider them.
So are you asking for like a team of testers that know the game, or are you asking for like more information?
And also potentially like testing for the perspective of a newer player or one with less knowledge of the systems.
Would Magic also answer this one first, or is it me?
Magic.
And honestly, both of you
first.
Any of you?
No, Magic answers first, and you answer after.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get this. Let me just summarize your question real quick. Are you saying that some mechanics should be better explained to newer players, or are you asking that there's a development server where updates are tested before going live?
Potentially that, like either like an official testing team, sort of like I've heard Triv. By heard I mean Aurora just pinged me with this that Trav does this in Sandbox, but I'm talking more like officially done it. Also for maybe like a testing server where like an experimental branch where big updates just get tested.
So I'll answer that first. I do have plans that we can make the dev server sort of a testing grounds sort of deal, so that if there's a pull request someone is working on, they can temporarily push it to a live environment, and that would solve so many issues you have no idea. Mm-hmm. Because I lost count on the number of times someone has worked out an update, they tested it locally, it's all perfect and good, and as soon as it goes on to live and has to deal with the 20 different modules, it all just goes to shit.
Or just they don't consider the 5,000 different things like high-end Z-mainers and H-mainers can pull off.
It would be good to have a public dev server. So traditionally, Poofly is famous for doing this. He would open up his local server, people would join, but you'd probably get I think Poofly only gets 8 people at a time.
You could always make it a real event, so just like Melee mode or something, where you just call hey, testing happening, join, and you might get some member.
Yeah, so that is something I would be very interested in looking at. Being able to spin up an update onto the dev server and it's open season for people to join. Maybe it can be on the sandbox mode or whatever game mode the developer thinks is most pertinent. As for your other question about arm slow, leg slow, basically hidden mechanics like that.
Not that specific, but just there's a lot of systems and mechanics that, although they some of them can technically be learned as a new player if you read every database entry and memorize them. But there's a lot that don't have good explanations. Some don't even have explanations. Explanations can be obtuse. There could be multiple different wordings for the same thing. I found a use of the word napalm rounds instead of flame rounds for some fucking reason. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that for the perspective of a new player, is deeply confusing. Not helped by a community that is more likely to yell at you than help you in any situation, really.
So a long time ago, when I was running GC, I made a interactive tutorial system where, while you were playing, you would get pop-ups about how to play the game and like basic stuff like that you have to press Z to phase, or that you have zombies have infinite lives, so don't be afraid to just run at the cade, or like do some crazy strategies that might have a 1% chance of working, but you can do it 1,000 times, so it will work eventually. So I would be very interested in bringing that over to Sunrust, and trying to implement some sort of like a training system for new players.
Or you could potentially go all the way and have like it so when you first join, you get sent to a small little solo instance where you go through a little like training course of some of the basic mechanics.
RTP kind of had that, and when I was on RTP to test something, I just ended up clicking through it because I just wanted to play the game at that point. So there's trade-offs. So I would try to go for the solution that is the least intrusive.
Fair enough.
But
and then there's the other side of more deeper mechanics need some sort of like it's very hard to like on-site tell like I've been enfeebled. What does this mean? My first thought is feeble, like feebleness, like weakness. Maybe it's I deal less damage. Nope, it means I take more damage.
All right, this is my last comment because I think we're going over time. But I thought of the tooltip system. If you ever played World of Warcraft, if you hover over something,
Hover
you see
over
like,
a debuff and see what it does.
You hover over debuffs, and you also have keywords you can hover over, which tells you what that means. Like
that would be so useful for the 5,000 different buffs.
Yeah, think about, for example, a weapon that gives broadside stacks. The broadside keyword, you can hover over it, and it'll give you a quick summary of what broadside stacks are, what they do. So I am very interested in new player engagement, trying to get new players into the game mode, make them feel like they're not overwhelmed.
And as much as people hate climbers, their repeated existence allows us to keep growing and not die.
And as for new updates, I would expect that I think I would be posing the question to a lot of developers pushing updates. How is this going to be communicated to new players? Because I feel like a lot of developers, they kind of code first, and because they were looking at the code for 5 hours, they think everyone knows the same things they do.
The way I sold it personally for the projects I've worked on was just to always keep in mind the perspective of a player who's not talked to any other, maybe a few other players, but not any of the devs. They don't have any information that you have to try and think of like a player.
I'm going to pose this question to Cyan, so let him time to respond.
So 2 parts, basically. First one was having a dedicated team for both veteran players and new players, as well as having a system basically in place for educating new players.
Yep. But either a testing team or like testing server events, shit like that. Was another idea.
I think the biggest thing is that we have ZS in-depth discussions, right? It was supposed to be a team of dedicated people that, medics that are good at it, they go in there. Melee mains, roamers, yada yada, they all go into this team in one place so we could discuss more in-depth issues. But since the player base has kind of shifted, old players stopped coming around, new players haven't been added, it's kind of died down, which has kind of lost a good chunk of the experience of like veteran players. So we probably have to reconstruct that in a sense of just either updating the people that are in there or just creating a whole new system. Yeah, but then there's also the other aspect of testing it live, which has been talked about before, would help fix and alleviate all these issues that didn't come up within single player testing. Because you could be testing it for 10, 20 times in every different scenario, but until you start testing it live, you're not going to figure out a lot of these things. But I do think having like a little like, you have Z events where it's like event starts now, blah, 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 and the event hosting, having that for new updates within the like big PRs, having a dedicated server for that would definitely help. Because right now the way that some of these dev servers are set up is that if you don't have it pushed to the actual main server, it won't be updated on the dev server, so testing it live in its own dedicated space will be kind of hard unless we fix things back end. So I definitely do think with a little bit of work we can get it so that it becomes more of a community event of testing new big updates, where instead of just being here you go, we're fixing this stuff later. Yeah, but as for the player...
The other things that could be a bit easier in the short term, but in the long term, because then you have to maintain that test team when they like inevitably quit or stuff.
Yeah,
It seems like it'd
exactly.
be a lot easier long term to have it set up like a testing server.
Mhm.
It'd be much more difficult short term.
Yeah, but I mean, just like for having small inputs of just like this fucking sucks playing this class right now would be a good idea to have for like the in-depth
We know this
discussions.
community is very vocal when they have issues.
Yeah, and it's not being gaslit, but that's another discussion. But as for new player engagement, one of the biggest things that I did want to work on is that in Risk of Rain 2, right, as an example, you hold Alt or whatever the button is, and you can hover over this debuffs that you have, and it gives you a little bit of a description of what it does and the name of it and how it interacts. I think that would be definitely very beneficial for ZS. I mean, this is kind of what Microsoft was talking about, but
Especially
Yes.
when you have a mod that makes it actually give the description.
yeah, exactly. Just having that in CS, right? So you just hold Alt, you look in your inventory, you can just hover over the debuffs, the buffs that you have currently. It'll give you a description of it. It'll give you maybe even the cause of it and what it interacts with. It would definitely help. Or even just like having a certain menu of like, you click on the weapon, it shows you all the innate buffs, debuffs that it has, and it'll give you a description on the left of the menu. What did they do if you hover over it as well? I mean, there's going to be some work that need to be done for like information bullets. You're not just being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But it definitely would help just explaining these.
Take a shit ton of text to explain.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just avoiding that's going to be the biggest issue, just like from a UI perspective. But then there's also the fact of just like giving random, you know how like you have those little pop-ups once in a while saying like, oh, you know, you can do like, you feel in that groove to type in /dance and blah, 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 like that stuff.
The stuff that happens in chat.
Yeah, it just pops up randomly. I think having some just little helpful tips there would be very beneficial to people that are just playing instead of just saying join our Discord at this spot. Being able to phase with this button, having people use respawn.
People.
Yeah.
But thank you for the questions.
Also, please change some of the buff and debuffs names. They're really weirdly specific and they should be changed to something that's more befitting generally.
Okay, thank you for the questions. So, thank you again. Benny, what's next?
Oh shit, I'm at the cashier, but I can talk. So let me see my fucking notes.
This is directed towards Cyan first, and
Mm-hmm.
Magic can respond.
Okay, so I'm the point save schizo, and I have a few things to say. Like as example, I don't like the suggestion page where only admins can start reaction. There's certain group, in my opinion, like Trixie and Zen, with authors protecting their own ideas. Like lead developers getting bored or not anymore interested in that duty. Like I said, I said this to Zen, that gives responsibility to others when he were a lead developer for a point save. There's many infamous ideas like we have talked about here, unfinished products, and when you ask about them, you get bozoed and memed about it. And I would just love that people would be honest and say if they don't have time for that shit or their situation has changed.
So wait, what's your question?
No, I'm just saying the same things that many people said here.
So is it a question or is it a statement?
Are you making a statement or a question?
Statement.
Then you have to ask a question.
Okay, well, I guess that was it. Okay, next one. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Legion. Wait, what? No. Legion's next.
Hey everyone.
Yo.
So I'm just make it so easier. I'm just gonna ask how your stances are on the other servers. Like, does point save ever get updates, or does Zombie Escape get any content at all, or something else?
That goes to Cyan first.
So you're just asking basically if we have any interest in updating these different game modes and doing things with them?
Yeah, pretty much. Will it get any updates or so on?
Well, my personal opinion is that I wouldn't want to have someone just put on there to put in half-assed updates, right? And just have like a ZS2 server, basically. I think that there should be dedicated people that are wanting to actually make it better and have their own unique vision. So with Z, for instance, it's mostly Jake and Cohen right now because they've played a lot of Z on the CS:GO servers and they wanted to bring it over here. So I think that they have a dedicated, they're a dedicated team and they have a good idea of what's going on with it. Now, to say it's dead or not, I don't know, but I definitely think that Z is in good hands right now and that they do have a lot of interesting ideas going on. But as for point save, I do think that it definitely needs a little bit of a rework post Fray because a lot of it was just influenced pulling from Black Ops. Like there's no distinction. Even the models were directly pulled from fucking Black Ops. So there definitely needs to be a different look at what point save should be. Should it be more roaming oriented? Should it just be disgustingly broken builds that get tens of thousands of points like in the old videos? Like we need to have a discussion of what it wants to be and then to actually have people that are dedicated to updating the game to that perspective. Now, I think that Zen and Crack were working on some updates coming along, but real life stuff gets in the way, so they haven't really been able to do it, as well as DJ Wicked. He also said that he was interested in doing that, but real life stuff comes in front of the developing of it. So I do think that for at least point save, there definitely needs to be another look at what the core fundamentals of what the game mode should be about. But definitely in the future, we'll be having some good stuff planned for it.
Yeah, it makes
Okay,
sense.
that's directed at now Magic can respond to that question too.
So I did have some plans for point save. I was planning on Black Ops 3ifying it, and fun fact, Black Ops 3 came out 9 years ago. So think about that for a little bit. Wunder Fizz, I brought this up way back when the Wunder Fizz was first added, but we would try to replace it with something that's more Sunrust, ZSE. But the problem is no one had the expertise on how to make SDK deployables. So I would be looking at Crack and looking at Zen, asking them, where do you want the most muscle? Do you want the most muscle in content creation? Do you want a Wunder Fizz replacement? And I would be able to provide the needed bandwidth to get some of these updates that they're planning out the door. I think it's very important that point save gets its own identity instead of hanging on the coattails of main and bringing all this other weird stuff so that it seems more like a weird midnight rather than its own thing. And I feel like it's mostly an issue with dev time. So I have no problem giving a few hours to point save, but I would trust Zen and Crack to point me where to go. And I feel like when we change a lot of things like that, we also come up with a lot of new ideas that could really help make the server stand on its own.
Okay.
All right then. Thanks all.
Thank you, Legion. Alright, CJ, next. This goes to Magic first, so. I guess CJ's not talking.
Nah, it's in the chat.
Yeah, he pinged.
Okay, Magic answers that first.
So, as you all know, I run ZSR, and ZSR is all about trimming the bloat. Like, our status list is a fifth of what it is on main, and we don't even have trinkets or skills. It's all attachments. I feel like the same principles can be applied to main, but it would need a lot of resources that I would get as head developer. So we could look at merging statuses. We could look at how often statuses are applied, and we could think about, well, let me take a step back. So regeneration and leech are like the biggest statuses on ZS. They're so big that they're not even statuses anymore. They're built into the code base. I think we would be looking at things a little bit more like that, where things that are highly integrated in the ZS become actual mechanics, so that the status list isn't a phone book they have to look at for things like that. One of the infamous statuses is the Minotaur buff, which originally implemented with the Minotaur shotgun. And I believe things like that could be sort of delegated to weapon-specific things. So what I'm saying is, it might not be a content issue such that there are too many statuses, but there are too many statuses in one area. So it's a bit difficult to digest.
Okay, and the question goes to Cyan now.
I think that there definitely is room for only deep loading of the buffs and debuffs, right? Because there's literally 50 some odd plus 150 buffs and debuffs in total that are just out there that definitely could be condensed down. Like, for instance, I don't think it's necessarily so much as we need to cut down it so much as discuss as a group what the purpose of these debuffs and buffs should be as for the whole of the game. Because I think if we are able to change a lot of, like, instead of having Revivify, for instance, we can have just innately with the weapon that you have a better rate of regeneration. I feel like some of these things could be just conveyed a little bit better back end instead of just having a whole dedicated buff debuff for it. I mean, even having like the player realize that this is happening to them is definitely something that'll have to be discussed, but there is room for just going through, sitting down, taking the time to go and say, is this really needed? Is this helping the vision of the game? Is this not? Can we do this a better way, a more optimized way?
Okay. Well, that's it then. Thank you for the response. Thank you for the question. Firestorm next.
Yes, hello. I have a question. Is it okay to ask Karan about this?
I mean, both of us will be answering at the end of the day.
Both will
So
be answering, but you're gonna ask both, and
Okay,
the other will be
okay.
allowed to respond.
Okay. So I understand there's a lot of content bloat in the models and otherwise, and that's on me. And I also understand that everyone is not happy about that. So I also want to know what will I be getting as my reward for that? Will I be getting my overseas rank?
Damn, flat out asking for a rank.
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly.
I'll give you your rank day one.
I'll do it right now.
You do it what now? Oh my god. Okay.
If you
Okay.
change your in-game, change your in-game to me, I'll do it for you.
Wait, what? In
If you change your in Discord. If you change your in Discord thing to voting for me, I'll do it right now.
I see. We're buying voters, huh?
No.
That's okay. We're allowed to do that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I had.
Do you have a real question though?
Well, that was my real question about
okay.
being overseas seeker in Sunrust, but that's okay if they can't.
Okay, well, we have Pooflet next, if you don't have a real question.
I will.
Thank you. Alright, Pooflet, I did allow the other VP to talk to Cyan, so if you have a question directly towards Magic Swap. Cyan can't answer, but if
yes,
you have
I do.
Question for Magic.
So, as we know, there are times when the lead devs have to make difficult decisions, specifically around removing content or doing nerfs that we know people are not going to like. And that is usually fallen on to me to do. How will you be handling that going forward?
You mean removing content?
Removing content, doing nerfs that you know people are going to dislike, but for the betterment of the game.
I don't care. I'll do it.
Okay. That was my question.
Damn, I'll do it. Okay.
Just shoulder that.
Okay, then we have Kite said next. Thank you for the question, Pooflet.
Hello.
Alright, this question goes, since that was asked turned to Magic, Cyan goes first.
Alright. So, would it be possible to get like very brief overview of the sort of quality of life updates you would bring to the server if you were elected?
To the server in what sense? Like to the community as a whole, to ZS specifically, or what?
To the entire community, not just the game, maybe the Discord, maybe the wiki, as Lucasaurus mentioned. That would be a cool thing to bring back. What could you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just having more community events, because we have community events for Z, we have community events for like the things that Poofled runs, the events that he has. But I think there definitely is room to just have more non-ZS related things like Devo did in the past. Like Jackbox, we had CSGO, stuff like that. I think that would be the biggest thing that I want to see happen. And just even having smaller things, like instead of mapping only contests, having SDK update contests, or just having like different art style, like pumpkin carving, for instance, that we have, just having different seasonal art contests that we have with custom rewards for that. I think that definitely would help. But in games specifically, I think is the biggest things that I would want to see is more organized shop, which is some devs are working on that. But I would also want to see just better new player engagement, just for giving hints and like giving a little bit of nudges of just what things do and how they interact. Because I don't really think it's, unless you like start digging around, it's not openly stated what the internal effectiveness for trinkets are when you're working with tier 1s to tier 6s, right? Just none of that really is around. So just better conveying this information to people, like in the wiki, like just in a little database, little tidbit or something, or just telling it to them outright whenever they're playing the game, just having a little pop-up saying, oh, this status does this, or having just a little bit info dump a little bit at a time. That definitely would help with player engagement and just making the game a lot better and easier to understand.
Yeah, it's true that like a lot of mechanics are not even mentioned properly anywhere, described how they actually work and stuff. So seeing that in game would greatly help new players and whatnot. Even like regular players would benefit from this. So I think it's great. Yeah.
Okay, Magic, your turn to respond to that.
So I remember you using the term quality of life, but are you leaning more towards community engagement?
Both, as Cyan stated, a lot of things in game and outside of the community. Like, what could you bring to the server that would, add to it? Let's say.
So a while ago, I was colloquially known as the quality of life dev. A lot of the changes in ZS are stuff that I made because as a player it annoyed me, and I ended up just going to change it. Stuff like the monthly stats is not exactly quality of life, but people like looking at their stats, and it's a persistent way of looking at things that I could only do when I had access to the database. As far as community goes, I'm a very advent hoster of movie nights and anime nights. It lets the community come together, and even though Gmod and Google and YouTube all take turns beating it down, I'm usually finding a way to bring it back up and trying to make those events continue on. For the past 12 months, we haven't missed a movie night, and we finished a few anime series through the anime nights. So if push comes to shove, I would be looking at ways to keep events that the community enjoys from going. I also hosted game nights before, where we joined Sten Co-op and other games like that. I try to look for games that most of the community would own. I think as far as engagement goes, as head developer, I would be given the resources to expand further on that. Like, we can think about expanding the database so you can get rewarded for Ember for joining these debates instead of having to log on to Cinema and using that ancient system. If you link your Steam account to your Discord, you can participate in Discord events and you'll get Ember just for participating.
Yeah,
so, as head developer, it wouldn't be anything new because I've been already doing this, but I would be able to do it better.
Okay, I see. All right, that answers it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for the question, Kite said. Next is Tyrone Biz and Gestapo.
So I go by Tyrone Biz. Don't
Uh-huh.
dead name me. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
So my question is, who's gonna have the balls? You feel me? Who's gonna have the balls to go up against Scott and tell this motherfucker to push off a side? We playing ZE at midnight, not fucking 3 a.m. That's my
Okay,
question.
Magic.
So I think the answer to this is more covert ZE operations, because the reason this kind of gets blown out of the reason ZE kind of gets blown out is because people go to ZS discussions and say like, oh, we're playing ZE. I can't believe we're playing ZE. And then, it trickles up Discord. So we're going to be starting to ban people who say we're playing ZE in ZS discussions. And if no one knows we're playing ZE, everything should be fine. We can play all the ZE we want.
Okay, Cyan, how would you go about that?
I think we should treat this more as a Fight Club situation where if Z is happening, you're not allowed to actually talk about it and have people join in unless they're just aware of it. So making it so that less people are aware would help with people hearing about, oh, we're playing Z, who forced them out, why didn't they discuss this, yada, yada, yada. So making it so that it's a little bit harder for people to discuss it, as well as just like making people aren't just going to be bitching about playing Z instead of playing ZS would definitely help alleviate this problem.
Look. These people play fucking ZS 24/7. They lose every single map. They average 10 points a game. And they type in chat, we're playing ZE, question mark? Enough. Those people have no say, bro. We need ZE at midnight. Bare minimum midnight. I'm not trying to see no fucking ZE at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Motherfucker, I'm sleeping, bro. Who's awake?
Yeah, well, Wednesday is right around the corner.
Okay.
That's it. Get me out of here, bro. Enough.
Thank you for the question. Okay, Maya, hello. Maya's next.
Hello, everyone. My question is very simple. So, what I really wanted to ask is if you guys will also make like a separate dedicated server for like the mini events, like for hide and seek and like melee mode and like infected wars, because people on main, it's kind of like the same with ZE where people like, complain about it and they're like, oh, I gotta leave now because it's melee mode or like it's infected wars or something. So, my question is just basically is if you guys will make like a separate server for it and what are your plans if you plan to do that?
Is this Matchdrop answering this one first, or is it me?
You.
All right. I think that having a separate dedicated server would alleviate a lot of these problems people have of oh, we're forcing Z again, what the fuck's going on, or just be interrupting the gameplay in the first place. So I think that if we did have a dedicated quote unquote side server for this, it would definitely help with this issue. But one of the biggest things that would help also if it was a side server is having a little bit of a banner pop up saying, instead of having to type in /portal and seeing what's going on, or just looking at chat to see it, having sort of in-game way of notifying players, oh, we're going to be having this event soon. Oh, tomorrow we're going to be doing, ZE, or tomorrow we're going to be testing out this new game mode, Infected Wars, right? Mm-hmm. So conveying it in-game with some sort of banner or some little pop-up would definitely, like in a non-intrusive way, would definitely help alleviate the fact that we're interrupting ZS normally, but having it in a dedicated server elsewhere.
All right.
Okay, Magic.
So this was brought up before, and I actually put together a plan of action that could help, put this together. So the main issue is everyone plays ZS, they don't want to leave ZS, and we have a ZE server that runs idle 24/7, basically. Now, my proposal was some sort of lobby system where we utilize the poll system, kind of like how you guys see the emote slots pop up, you can opt in or out. It would be a lobby system where, hey, we're starting a ZE event. Do you want to join? And there'll be a check or cross, and if 48 people join, they can they'll just get ported to the ZE server. Because the main issue with the ZE event is that, players are aware that there's going to be a ZE event, but the problem is they get so invested in main that they just don't want to disconnect. It would just kind of forcefully transfer them to the ZE server, and then when ZE concludes, they'll be transferred back to main. A little bit like how we moved people back to point save, a little bit how we silently moved people to point save if they tried to join main, but in a much more consensual kind of way. The problem with banners is that, you get the message out and people can connect easily through ! Portal, but you have to open a portal and you have to connect to it. It'd be a lot easier to have like a Gmod tower interface that can set up lobbies, get 48 people in the server at one time, and immediately spin up around a ZE. And I believe P-Town, being a former Gmod tower developer, we can put some serious muscle behind getting that to happen.
Okay, I think those are both pretty good answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maya, for the question. Cavadoo's next.
I have a 3-part question for both of you, but
Magic goes first here.
So considering that most players have a concern of balance decisions from developers, what is what you feel needs to be balanced currently, such as medics, zombies, gunners? What do you think should be the focus? How would you balance it? And how would it be different with what you balance? Would it be different from how we balance things now or not?
So I think 2 fundamentally impacts 3. I believe that the primary issue with balancing would be something that the community decides. So unfortunately, I think that's kind of in turmoil at the moment. I think medics is kind of a mess. I'm scrolling through the comments right now, and yeah, it's a mess. So ultimately, we'll need a refresh on what the priorities are, and that'll have to be put to a poll by the community.
How would you propose balancing medic then?
So we'll look at the data. We'll look at what people like to play as for medic. We'll ask for opinions on what the best parts of medic is. And if it requires fundamental changes, we'll do it. If it doesn't require fundamental changes, we do it. If people like using the medic guns over the medical kits, we can look at implementing more stuff for the medical guns. If we don't, then we can look at more stuff for the medical kits. The point I'm getting at is, this sort of plays into the previous question. It'll all be put onto a pull request, and players can actually play around on the dev server. They'll get rewarded for participation, so we can get a sizable player base on the dev server, and they can just see, how medics are performing. We can play some small maps to try to simulate around a ZS. Devs will be on to notify them what changed, any notable skills that might be impacting them. The database would all be different, so they could, have different skill trees, and it wouldn't impact main at all. And that's why I said 2 fundamentally changes 3, because this would be a completely new way of looking at balancing, where we get the most community engagement with testing updates. It wouldn't be just a small cabal and ZS developer collab, whatever the fuck the channel is called now, or like a conversation that was held at 3 a.m. in ZS discussions. But this would be actual boots on the ground testing. Players would see what changed, and they could say if they like it or not. And if they don't like it, then, well, that's another week in the oven. That's another week in the oven to make sure that the food comes out right.
Thank you for that response. That's a creative one.
Okay, Cyan, how would you do it?
I think I already hit this point a little bit. I don't know if you heard Ted do beforehand, but the biggest thing is having not just dev input, it was an isolated echo chamber within dev, having community input with it, which should definitely help by just having people either just in ZS in-depth discussions, regular discussions, giving input back from what they see in, the update logs development, the other one, but also just having a new system for like we talked about before, having a new system with a dedicated server for pushing these updates for an event involving the community, testing it out, seeing if it's a good update or not, if it's a big one. Like doing something like that would definitely help with this problem of just getting input and seeing if the community likes it and if the community wants it, or if it actually is a beneficial update that won't harm the end gameplay.
Well, all right.
Did I answer your question completely, or?
Yeah, well, one of the parts of the questions were, what do you feel needs to be balanced right now?
Oh, yeah.
Magic Swap said probably medics right now. I wonder what you think might need to be balanced.
I think that the skill tree definitely needs another looking at, because after 3.0, or I guess it would be 2.0 now, whatever update it is, it feels a little bit lacking in the sense of the trade-offs for what you're putting in is definitely not being outweighed by the benefits that you get. So, losing your reload speed for a niche buff isn't really helpful, and then going the traits, you're basically forcing people to go traits at the end of the day because of this drawback that you're getting. So I definitely think that reworking the actual debuff, like, the negatives for taking a skill versus the positives would definitely be a benefit. Or,
So you think like the skill tree is a bit underwhelming in comparison of the traits?
Yes, at least for the trade-offs, right? It's skewing it so people are just wanting to take traits at this point because they don't get any of the downsides. They just get limited selection.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the fact that now we basically pseudo-remort-locked it. If you want to start skipping the tree, you're going to need remorts. So you're incentivizing traits even more at that point.
Would you consider buffing the skills, or would you consider nerfing the traits?
As a whole, devs should be in a buff meta more than nerf meta, because nerfing things without any corresponding buffs ruins player engagement, ruins the relationship they have, and it just makes it less fun in general. So having a good balance between a trade-off between nerfing something and buffing something, or just outright buffing it in general, is definitely better than just nerfing something because it's too broken, or because these numbers in our database say it's healing too much, or it's because it's doing slightly too much damage and there's some weird exploit with it. I think there should be some variety for neat and unique builds that are kind of eccentric, but also kind of break the game a little bit more than you would think. And just having that balance is something that needs to be worked on, and that needs to just be a discussion between the devs themselves as well as a community. There's community discussion, an open community discussion like the fireside chats that Drew has, or just even a mini chat with Pooflick cooking. I mean, those things are definitely beneficial in a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does that answer your questions? Do you have another one? I'll let you ask another one.
No, I don't have another one. I just wanted to thank both of them. They both have a really different viewpoint on balancing how they want to handle it, but I like both of them, and so yeah, thank you.
Well, you can't vote for both. You can only vote for one. But thank you.
I'm not gonna skew anyone's opinion. I'm
Fair
not
enough.
making people pick what they want.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin Duke. Whippedia. Sorry. I had a brain fart.
Hi, Devies. Hi, future headies, bros. I got at least one scenario for you guys. So, lately, I've been thinking about this because it's something that I've kind of been thinking about. So, I want you guys to imagine a scenario where one person is top scoring with a weapon that a lot of people are either really bad with or just considered really terrible. And imagine if they're the only person top scoring with that specific weapon, and it goes on for one day and the next couple of days, and no one else is using it except them. Is it the player or is it the weapon that's strong?
Okay, that goes to Magic first, I believe. Who went first last time? It was Magic. Yeah, Magic. That's a question for Magic first, and then Cyan can respond.
Wait, no. I went first last time.
Oh, did you?
Oh, wait, Kevin?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because it was Kevin. Yeah, okay. Cyan, go ahead.
I think it's me personally. I think it's a little bit too vague of a question because there's so many underlying factors to it. Like, what was the percentile of humans to zombies? What skills were they using? Were they using traits? Was this an elemental build? Was it just straight, Reaper stacks, whatever? A lot of this needs to be taken into consideration before we can make a definitive answer like that. But in general, like I said, balancing around the top 1% players is not a good idea just for any game. And we've seen that in the past with different types of games, but especially here because a lot of the skill comes from the intricacy of the knowledge of how these things interact, or even just being able to shoot well. And nerfing a weapon because someone plays well is not a good way of balancing things. Now, given if it's some bug in the code that we were alerted to because of this, then yes, sure, it's going to be nerfed. But it's dependent on what the situation actually is, rather than like if person A is top scoring with weapon B, then we need to nerf it.
Okay.
Okay, Magic.
So I actually have a case study here. Let me get I got the research notes right here. This is the case study that we had back in 2021 when the VSS was first added. The VSS, when it was first added, it on kill, it would inflict soften to 3 nearby zombies. Unfortunately, this weapon was a tier 6, and it was also the lowest performing tier 6 on average for the first 4 or 5 weeks it was introduced. On sec, one player, Frisky Piranha, was able to top score with it. So we looked at the fact that they were top scoring, we looked at what they were doing, and we said, you know what? They were able to make it work. I think it's okay. We were okay with the fact that it was okay. We didn't think any further adjustments needed to happen. What we ended up doing was that we would look at stuff that was the main issue people were struggling on it, and we gave it just like a small like damage boost, just so it was like on par with the other tier 6s. And that's kind of what the build tracker or the inventory spy technology allows you to do. Lets you see if they have any trinkets that are synergizing well and copy them. There's even a button to copy them. So you know what? If someone's top scoring with a weapon that not a lot of people use, good for them.
All right. Okay, I got another scenario. Okay, this one is just going to be because you guys are basically going to become a heady at some point. Whenever I look at ZS discussions, sometimes there's a bunch of people that will argue about certain parts of the game, especially with like weapons. Like imagine if Salt says something about the Sanguine Surge and all that, and then you have Drew telling him, hey, this thing is actually good. And then Sigma Dev Bucket comes over and he's like, no, this thing is garbage. Well, and they just start having a bickering fight in ZS discussions. So would you guys would rather have them stew it over in ZS discussions and just watch the fire go down? Or would you guys just probably pull them in and just pretty much discuss it privately?
I think I'll go first since this is the second question.
Yeah, you can go first. Separate question.
If 2 devs want to bicker in public in ZS discussions, then I'm going to ask for screenshots of them on the scoreboard. I want them to make a skill tree build or make a traits build, and I want them to fucking try as hard as they fucking can for an entire day with that weapon to try and make it work. Take a screenshot of their place on the scoreboard when they exit through the portal, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, how would you handle that, Cyan?
Well, open discussion debate is perfectly fine as long as it doesn't cross the point of just saying you're a shit dev, you're a shit person, why the fuck are you doing this? Then that just becomes a problem of being an asshole, and then that's going to be going to a whole different territory, and that should not be happening publicly, right? But having an open debate about, this weapon sucks because of this. No, it's good because of these statistics. That is healthy for a game mode, and just not, because having echo chamber is not good for any game mode, but having different perspectives is. Now, just making these claims baselessly is not good. No, you need to actually have facts to back it up, screenshots, data points, stuff like that. But this player feel of it is definitely an input that I feel like certain devs are lacking in. That definitely needs to be looked into more of an actual key point, because sure, people can be gaslighting, but at the end of the day, these people are playing the game because they like it. If these features that are playing with aren't good and they get ruined, then there's going to be need for change. Like for instance, with decisional corruption recently.
Okay. Is that it for now?
Okay, one last minor question. This is just going to be a really small one. On Game Tracker, so like on Game Tracker right now, if you ever look at the top scores for like the overall, notice that there's like 8 people who have these insanely bloated fucking scores that are so crazy. They outscore dude. Fucking Dr. Mishmash has more points than dude on Game Tracker. I kind of wonder, you know, if you guys have ever decided to try to look into how that thing works and how if you guys would probably like try to fix that in order to prevent something like that happening. Or if it's not just a cosmetic thing to you guys.
Those are bugs.
Those are bugs? So then
Yeah,
it's
those are
practically just a
bugs.
cosmetic thing and you guys don't want to look into.
I'll answer. Yeah, it's just a bug. It would actually just be, I guess extreme because he has the game tracker. I'd have to take it. I never really bothered with that.
All right. See,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll answer on their behalf. There's nothing they could do about it. It would have to be me or extreme.
All right. Okay, that's it. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the questions. All right, we'll be answering. They'll be answering questions for another 10 minutes. So we have a bunch of repeats. I'll let Tyrone Biz go again. Don't kill me for dead naming you, bro.
Thank you again for dead naming me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The question still hasn't been answered by these devs. Who will have the balls to go up against head daddy pimp Scott? You guys are supposed to be head devs, not bitch devs, right? Because to my understanding, the only reason Z even played because of Scott. So
isn't or is?
Isn't because of you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you again for ruining Sunrust. Thank you. So, can we get some zombie escape? Preferably 2 hours before 3 a.m. You know, we're looking at 1, maybe 12. You know, midnight.
You kind of asked that already, and they said more covert. And so,
what does that
your
mean?
question about Z? Okay, they said exactly what they meant.
What are you trying to say?
Are we?
Do you want us to go say "fuck you, Scott"? I'm gonna do what I want now. Like,
yeah, bro.
Okay.
If the people want ZE, right? Democracy rules. How are we voting for you, bro? We'll be voting for you guys. Is it not democracy?
Well, I heard Scott's going on a vacation to Belize.
Yeah.
Enjoy your trip. Ha. Enjoy your trip. I expect to see some zombie escape on the server. But to my understanding, right, ZE isn't played because of Scott. So we're trying to see some zombie escape on, you know? Enough is enough, man. Are we gonna get it? Yes or no, bro? Enough with the covert.
They answered yes, essentially. They went against. I mean, my thing is that I don't have an aversion to Z.
Huh?
I don't care. It's more so that people complain, like in private, because there are people like you who say Z-thers constantly, and you make everyone mad.
Bro, they literally hop on for like 5 minutes, and they say ZE's on main. I'm messaging Scott. This is supposed to be a zombie survival server. Why is your ZE on here? And these are the same people that don't score anything. They don't do anything. They can't play the game. They can't heal. They can't shoot.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna. Thank you for the question. I'll let CJ go one more time.
Catalyst hasn't gone yet.
Yeah. I'll let CJ go one more time though.
And also Fluttershy.
Yeah.
I think it's already been answered.
Didn't you ask that?
He didn't ask that. He was asking more specifically for buffs and debuffs.
Okay, what would you buff or nerf first? Well, that'll be the question.
I think the biggest thing would be going through and just making sure. Or actually, is it my turn to answer this, or is Magic's buffs? I think it's my turn again because the
It's
double
your,
question.
I'll
from
just
the
say it's
beginning.
your turn because he just threw me
Yeah.
off.
So I would say the biggest thing to be looking at is the skills. Because like I said before, traits are just objectively better right now to take because there is no downsides. Just you have to select the correct ones and actually have a good build. Whereas skills right now, you're selecting things and you're getting reload speed downsides, you're getting recoil downsides that are for almost no benefit. Right? That the debuff greatly outweighs the buff that you're getting. So I think reworking that, because the way Darker did it is fine. Having these unique skills is good. But the debuffs that are associated with it are definitely, hindering what's going on in the game right now. And we also talked about the deep loading of the statuses and whatnot, and also as the models as a whole.
Right. So I'll pose a question to Magic Swap as well. What would you buff or nerf first? That'll be mostly what he's asking.
I believe I tipped my hand earlier and I said, I think that medic was the highest priority. So I guess I'll have to keep going all in on that. I believe that medics would need a quick review. And again, this would be community driven to see what they feel is strong, what they feel is not strong enough. I feel like medic has a lot of changes, but the roots are still deeply nested in Nox when Medic was first nerfed by Jet Boom after Matt Marsh got fed by 5 people and got Medkit killed. So I guess my answer would be nerf med weapons, buff medkits.
Oh, Scott, he has a correction for the question. Would it be rebalancing the game mode for the first update or nerfing or buffing first?
Okay. You can
I'll just keep it short and sweet. I think rebalance first. Just so we can get more people talking, just the rebalance first would be the highest priority. Then if there's a problematic thing going on, nerfing or buffing.
Do I have to revise my answer too?
Yeah, you can revise it based on his correction.
So if anyone remembers back in 2019, 2018, React was very famous for releasing patches where there would be a buff for every nerf. So I would be following that philosophy where there is an equilibrium of buffs and nerfs at the same time. So you wouldn't see a nerf that's alone, and you wouldn't see a buff that's alone as well.
Okay. Thank you, CJ. Hopefully that was more accurate to your question. Let Fluttershy go on. Hello, Fluttershy.
He types.
Yeah.
What's your stance on Wave 1 and 2 spatial protection? Should it be stay the same, or get toned down? Magic Swaps first.
Yeah, Magic Swap.
Okay, so I recall Edward adding sigil protection, and unfortunately, sigil protection is something. Okay, so there's two parts to sigil protection. One is you need caters to barricade the sigils, and two, you need something to associate with the replays. I think Wave 2 sigil protection can be toned down. I think if sigil isn't catered by Wave 2, you kind of deserve to lose it. But Wave 1, it can stay. I think something needs to happen with sigil protection itself effect on zombies, because the fact that they get slowed down by like 10x, you might as well just like make the sigil like banish them or like ban them or whatever. I think that'll be my final answer. I would look into toning down Wave 2 sigil protection and making it so it's not just a trench warfare for zombies.
Okay. Cyan.
Originally, sigil protection was added as a an FU to Z-mains that are just sneaking in, poison or whatever, killing all the people that are AFK in there is getting redeemed. So I think now that meta has kind of died down, there's room to improve and change this sigil protection, right? So wave 1 necessary, right? Gives people time to actually arcade, gives people time to set up defenses. But wave 2, it could definitely be changed just in the fact that it wouldn't 100% stop your boss progress if you have this debuff. Actually making it so that there is some reward for being able to get to arcade somewhat early, because once wave 2 hits, and if you're not defending it, you're fucked, right? So changing that aspect is definitely one of the biggest things, but also just changing it to something that's, instead of slowing them, just maybe a sigil pulse once in a while, every 10-15 seconds, pulsing a sigil, teleporting it back to Z-spawn, or just having a % chance that teleports them back. So it gives not as a debilitating or debuff to them, so they can actually still attack and be a little bit more aggressive than just being arbitrarily fucked and saying, oh no, can't do that anymore.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question, Fluttershy. Okay, we are at 90 minutes, but we can extend it by 10. Do you want to keep going for 10 more minutes? We'll hard cut it off at 10.
I would say just go through these ones that we have still here, the new ones. So just
Yeah, we'll do
Catalyst
the new
and
ones, okay.
Nuker, and be done with it.
Okay, so 2 more questions from Catalyst and Nuker.
Another one in chat.
Oh, there is? Oh, yeah.
Okay, that goes to Cyan first?
Yeah.
I keep losing track, yeah. Okay, so Cyan first.
To read the question out, would you consider ever unifying statistical awards between servers? A large reason that people might not be encouraged to play smaller servers is that people looking to earn progress towards grinding achievements like Human Legend can't even progress to servers like ZSR and therefore aren't encouraged to play them. I think that it's really dependent on a lot of the rewards themselves, like it'd be reward specific. So for instance, having headshot kills would make a little bit more sense to be on ZSR than having, melee main kills. But it definitely is situationally dependent, but depending on the vision of what these game modes go for, like if we turn point save into, for instance, a more broken server where it's just like old brain Ruby that procs off itself, or if we're going for more of a roaming aspect, it would definitely influence what we do with the statistical awards. Or if we might need to put case-to-case basis of just putting 0.5 multiplier next to it or 0.75 because it's this easy to get on the server. So it would definitely need to be a discussion of the vision of what we want these servers to be, but it definitely would make more sense to have the achievements and the statistics available to all servers so that we have more engagement between people. We're not forcing them to just go on main because we say it's the only server you're allowed to get it on.
Okay. Magic, how would you answer that question?
So as the author of monthly stats, statistics are important to me. I feel like people should be rewarded for their playtime by seeing how they rank. I do believe that we'll be looking into global statistics and being able to have awards be contributed to by other servers. So the reason it's not like this ahead of time is because people were afraid, point savers with their 20k builds that no one actually goes for because everyone's just too busy talking to each other. They would be able to. It would be easy mode to get certain achievements. This dates back all the way to side server, where side server is super easy to get a solo win, while on main you're kind of in the rat race with 128 other people. So I do believe that statistics such as zombie damage can be contributed to by all servers. And we would be adding tooling so that if there is an exploit on a specific server, like on ZSR, someone manages to get a 500k due to a programming error, there would be safeguards to roll it back. So it could be a new branch of rewards called global rewards, where you have to play on all the servers or you have to play on multiple servers to get a good chance of achieving it. And that would increase community engagement. It's a big issue with ZE rewards since ZE has a lot of weird edge cases where, you need to be on main or the ZE server to get rewards.
Okay. That's the last. Was that the last question?
No, Duker.
All right, Duker. Still there? Okay.
Hello. Am I coming through?
Yeah.
Yeah. My question was, what are you guys' thoughts on the pornographic or pornographic adjacent content that's currently present on the server, and do you have any plans to limit or encourage that?
Hi, can you be more specific?
Particularly like furry pornographic
can you provide a
sprays
link?
or player models. There's a certain couple player models and a certain few sprays that in my opinion, people are a little too lenient on. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
So, what you're asking for is a subjective the player models. I'm sorry. What you're asking for is a very subjective take on sprays and an objective take on player models. Is that correct?
I'm just asking like what you guys' opinion on this content is, and whether you want to encourage it or reduce it.
Okay, so there's a zero tolerance policy for player models. If there's any rated 18 content, for lack of a better term, for player models, then that's gonna be that's a top priority to get rectified, like above content optimization, I think, because that has the chance to blow out of control as we've seen with a certain player model that's been added in the previous 2 weeks.
Yeah.
As far as sprays go, I feel like there can be some. I feel like it can go either way. We can either do a zero tolerance policy, or we can look into ways like, okay, we don't want rated 18 content sprays accessible to people, but people want to spray rated 18 sprays. How can we come up with a system that allows for both? And I think it would be ultimately up to the community to decide, because we can go either way. Like, we could set up another spray database where if we ever need to, pull the plug on it, we can.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you. What about you, Cyan? What do you think?
I think that for models, zero tolerance policy for that, because at that point, then you start getting the server in trouble in the community in trouble. So if someone shows this content being on here, then get us in trouble for having this content available through the game mode, and that would not be good for us. But as for also even just the current models that we have as well, there are some definitely provocative models that are just visually annoying or auditorily annoying. Whenever they get fucking hit and they start moaning is the most obnoxious thing I've ever fucking heard in my life.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh my god, it's amazing. But definitely can look into just adjusting the pain noises for some of these things. But for spray specifically, I think it kind of leans into that as well. And I personally have a stricter policy for that stuff than other people. I don't like seeing all these porn sprays, I'd rather the blood go to my brain than my cock, so I'd rather just have a little bit of a stricter mentality for these things, but definitely not just having straight up boobs in sprays.
Yeah.
Despite them being nice, there's a time and place for them. And it's just, why have the risk on the server for something like this? Like back in Nox, it's like you'd have fucking Takara's spray of just two black men kissing or whatever it was, and just shit like that. Or
a lot more than kissing.
Yeah. But the point I'm trying to get is that
exile that. Maybe we could exile the sexual deviants to point save. I think that
is a good point. Just to banish them, just pull out the ban training and ship them right off silently, so that they have their own little community.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Now we could take one more question from Red Flames. He hasn't asked. Do you two want to do that?
Yeah, I think we can have this nice finisher.
Okay, Red Flames, what's your question?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Red Flames.
Oh, yes. I'm not sure if that already has been asked as a question, because I came very late. Because also recently I saw that the Essence medicines and the repair also for the caters were removed. And I wanted to know if there was gonna be any if the devs are right now happy with the states of how like cating it is and all the other stuff, because recently cating has been really hard. And what happens, it was already hard, I mean, like earlier, and now I have to buy my own remantler, do all this stuff. People are not helping, and I was wondering if anything was going to change or it's going to stay at the state that it is right now.
So this one should go to me then first.
You go
So
first.
then, I think that just comes from a mentality. I do a lot of cating more so than medic maining, but it comes from the mentality of what the player wants to achieve from that game or gameplay style, right? So there's a mentality of pure repair maining, right? Those people are going to be a lot affected in a greater extent than someone who just purely cates, right? Because they have to get their points early on from just hitting prophecy being broken, and because of the way that we have the game programmed, where you can't really have spawn cates, it's going to be a lot harder for them to get points nowadays. But for a pure cater, it's perfectly fine to not have any of that essence and just be able to just mess around with a tier 1 hammer and then just get your ZS Stimmy welfare track on wave 426 and be able to buy Mjolnir whenever you get it. So definitely, it depends on where you're coming from that, but making it so that repair isn't pure repair main, no shooting, is pure repair main, isn't suffer. There's definitely room for improvement for that, and me and Buck have been talking about it, adding some new weapons that would actually help alleviate this a little bit, like the screwdriver that Microsoft helped make the model for, thank you. And some variants, bring back some variants of drills would definitely help with this problem of just early game being absolute pure suffer versus just being a pure cater and getting your ZS Stimmy check.
Okay, Magic, how would you answer that question?
I'm not quite sure why people are pussyfooting about Wave 1 income for repairers and medics. On ZSR, we added a straight-up med station, and it seems to be, in every playtest, it worked out okay. I mean, repairers top-scored Wave 1, but then they were able to buy what they wanted, and they were able to have fun playing for the rest of the game. And eventually it renormalized with DPS at the top of the scoreboard, as it usually occurs. So I think we can learn some lessons from ZSR and apply it to main as far as early game point income goes for repairers and medics. Because I do feel like, sorry, not repairers, caters. I do feel like caters can get I think caters can afford to get a little bit more in their kit starting out versus what they currently are afforded.
Okay, because I was asking that question because I don't want to be like someone who's bitching, because people are saying, "Oh, Red Flames Cade." Sometimes, every time, like I join, like not 100% of the time, but they're saying, "Oh, I'm a good caterer, so I can help people to cade." But even for me, sometimes it's hard because there's not really teamwork when I have to like
I think we're done
buy
here.
my own stuff and all that. Why you're so mean like this? Okay, yeah, you guys answered my question. Thank you very much. But Crayon, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
It's about the
You mean for us?
screwdriver. It's about the screwdriver because he said you guys were gonna add a screwdriver. What is that gonna do? Like,
the programming is still being gone through, but the personal vision was that there would be two variants of it. One would be a regular one, and would be a variant, and one would be more focused around getting kills, whereas the other one would be focused on repairing itself. So the first one would be if you get a kill or some sort of requirement, it would reduce the actual timer on the transponder. So it would be lowering, for every kill, for every certain amount of repairs, you would lower the timer on the transponder by 1 second, like people using a resupply.
Also, yes, that is a question for both of them. Magic does get a chance to respond to that if he wants to.
Yeah. And
right. I didn't say anything.
Okay. No, I mean, do you want to respond to that?
I think it's just asking about the things I was planning on adding more so.
Oh, you. Okay.
Yeah, because I mentioned that, but I didn't really go into detail about it. But then the second one would be more of like a buffing tool. So you would repair a certain amount, and then you would buff people around you in a certain radius. It would be a lower tier than the transponder reducing one because it's a little bit more realistic to be doing that early game than late game. But they'd be more geared towards different play styles. So you would not just be pure repair maining, it would be I'm repairing and buffing people, I'm repairing and helping get kills, damage on the scoreboard, getting damage and repairing the barricades and helping the transponder as well.
Thank you very much. And before I leave, thank you. I love you, Cyan. I love you, Scott. I love you, Johnny Mo. I love you also, Waza. I love you, CJ. And I love you, the
Hey,
others also. Thank you.
you don't love magic?
Hey,
No,
what's mine?
he was mean with me.
Ooh.
Hey, what's mine?
Oh, I love you, Rat Storm also. Yeah, I forgot you
What the
too.
hell, man?
You too,
Okay.
Xerxes. And you too, TX Banana. And Mia, you're a rat. And all the others, I'm coming for your ambers. Thank you very
And
much.
me, Red Flames.
Who that? Johnny Mo?
Yeah.
Hold on.
I
It's
said Johnny
not
Mo. I
over.
said I love you, Johnny Mo. I said it.
Boys, it's not over. Okay. Well, that basically concludes the debate, but I'm gonna give final statements completely to both of them. Now, who wants to go first? I'll just let either of you decide. You want to both go first, or you want to go second?
I think Microsoft should go first because they answered the last question.
Well, I mean, what do you prefer, Magic? Because I'll do a coin flip.
I think I'll go first since Science started out the debate.
Okay.
That too.
All right. This is closing statements. 2 minutes each.
So, as head developer, I would have a lot more resources to do what I already do, which would be focus on the community and focus on quality of life. I'd be doing everything in my power to make sure that there isn't any potential wasted and that everything continues to run smoothly. I think as head developer, it would open up a lot more doors, and Sunrust would have a lot of good things going for it.
Okay. Cyan, your closing statement?
I think that as head developer, I'd be able to have just a better engagement for the community as a whole. For instance, with having more non-CS related things going on, like having more game nights with different games, having even just like SDK creation contests, having drawing stuff, having just more engagement with the player base, and having more discussions between the devs and the players as well. Because currently, a lot of the updates that are being pushed feel like it's just a little bit of an echo chamber between the devs versus, and just, sort of jerking themselves off and no communication really with these things. And because of that, the player base is just feeling a little bit, disrespected. And it's like, what's the point of us even making these suggestions if we're just going to be shot down because I'm known as a problematic player that's trying to gaslight. So definitely changing that mentality and having a better engagement between the two places is paramount to having a successful server of life. But also just being able to have more standards for making good maps, making good models, making good player maps, just having standards set for those. Even just making those standardization for nav meshing so we're not having so many problems is needed, because currently maps that are being pushed have only visual standards and optimization. There's no gameplay standards at all. There's no check for that. There's no team to vet these things other than just, does it play well or does it work? Yeah, sure, go for it. So having these things that are set in stone, having standards to be set for these things is one of the most important things we need to do, as well as also just having a standard for updating the wiki and having a place for new players to come and read up on these things and being more educated on what's going on in the game.
Oh, thank you. Thanks to the both of you for participating in this debate, and thank you for all those who asked questions. There will be the poll coming very soon. We will decide on how to do that. Discord, it won't be a Discord poll again. You can see the results of that. So it'll be anonymous voting next time. There will be, I guess, a post-debate show for whoever wants to attend here. I guess we can either move to the stage or stay here. But yeah, again, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for these two lovely candidates. And yeah, that's it for now. Thank you all.